This is The Breakaway. For those watching on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, welcome along. Darrell and B with the win on stage 9, a party on Bastille Day for Mitchelton Scott with their first tour stage win in 3 years. Julien Alaphilippe gave the French plenty to cheer on their national holiday, keeping the maillot jaune for another day. Well, I am joined by Brian, Dan and Jonathan Voters of EF Education First for The Breakaway today. Welcome, your first appearance on the show. How was today for you, Simon Clark, in The Breakaway?
Yeah, I mean, we set out with the tactic this morning. We've pivoted away from sort of our original goal, which was a little bit more focused actually on the Team GC, and then, keeping Mike Woods and TJ as close as we could to Rigo pretty far into the race. That hasn't worked out. So today we've totally pivoted away and are now going to start chasing breakaways. Simon being he's already been in the break once, but today he was the guy who found his way in there today.
So all changed then in the last couple of days with TJ going home, Michael Woods taking a tumble yesterday. You've had to reconfigure everything then quite quickly.
Yeah, it's a pretty large pivot, but the fundamental goal coming into the race was always Rigo on general classification, and so now it'll be that, and then in addition, Bettiol and Simon Clark and the rest of the guys, chasing some stages when the terrain is suited for breakaways like today.
How much does it affect your team chances now? I mean, Rigo is still in 8th. He's got pedigree in this race, but when you're taking on the likes of Team Ineos, for example, to not have that support and I guess the visible threat to your rivals, how much of a difference does that make?
Well, we can play a pretty cagey game in just staying a little bit below the radar. Nobody's expecting us to, take control of the race. So we can kind of play a game where we just wait and wait and wait and wait. With Rigo anyway, until you get in deep into the final week. And then at that point in time, it just becomes up to him as to whether or not, if he's recovered well and he's saved enough energy, which Rigo is the master of saving every last little drop of energy. If he can come into that last week and hasn't really had to expend that much, he usually is pretty phenomenal the last few days. And that's where he could do something interesting and impactful.
I'm going to put these two on the spot now because you're here, but I want to know, they've been in the commentary box the last couple of days, Brian, since the beginning. Rigoberto Urán currently in 8th. How dangerous do you think he's looking, Brian?
I don't think he is looking dangerous at all. On the plans to Belfie, he really kind of struggled a little bit. I would be very surprised if he finished on the podium, and I'm just being straight and honest as I am, but it's a great team goal that you've got. I think there's other better talent here. I just want to know, are you coming back next year with Hugh Cathy to win the Tour de France?
Or driving the team bus, one of the two.
Yeah, exactly. He's a much better bus driver, really. So,
Dan, what do you think?
I think Rigo's probably going to win this race.
Just to keep him happy. What have you made of the team's efforts so far, though?
Well, every team has to adapt to the different situations, and their situations changed quite dramatically with TJ going home, and as you said, the Mike Woods crash yesterday. But with the ultimate game still being Rigoberto Urán, it means that they can now go for the GC with him, but also go for the stage wins. And that's exactly what Mitchelton Scott did today, wasn't it? They've got Adam Yates for the long game in the GC, but they're still putting riders up the road, and that paid off with the stage win today.
What is morale like on the team then when you do have to change your team plans like that? Someone like TJ has gone home, but you do have the strength as well. You've got the likes of Bettiol, who's had a great season. What is the morale like over dinner in the evening?
Yeah, the guys bounce back pretty fast. That's one of the stronger points that we have as a team is that, the guys are really tightly bound and they pop over the top of adversity pretty quickly. So I haven't really, although it was sad seeing TJ go home, I don't think that there's been any, big change in the way we're thinking about things.
So there's been a lot of talk, as you would expect, about Team Ineos and their dominance or otherwise this year. Do you see them to be the same force that Team Sky were? Is it too early in the race to say?
It's too early to say exactly. The rough answer is no. I don't think they're quite as on point as they've been. And even on the Plateau de Belfie, it's interesting because their whole tactic is to come into the race as strong as and make the difference as fast as possible, and then defend from there on out, right? And that Geraint was quite good there, but to me, I'm looking at that as an indication. Thibaut Pinot is going to be almost like the race favorite, whereas when I go back to Rigo and say in counter to your argument is that Rigo only has 19 days of racing coming into the race, and I think he'll be quite exceptional in the third week. Plateau de Belfi, we always knew was going to be a losing proposition for him, so it's just a matter of treading water until we get there.
Look, as a fan, I hope he does. I want to see as many people there. I have to give my honest opinion of what I've seen, but I agree with you on the Ineos factor. I don't think they look as dominant as they have.
The question is with Pinot, does Pinot have a team at all if he were to get into the... And I know I'm not talking about Alaphilippe at all, which maybe is a mistake, but if Pinot gets into the yellow jersey, does he have a team at all to defend it?
It's going to come down, and that's what I said this right from the start about the Tour de France. You have to take your opportunities, and a team taking their opportunities could win, because it could come down to man against man. As you say, Ineos, I don't think, are looking dominant. What other team can control this race? I don't think many teams can control this race.
Yeah,
so it's going to be open. So if Varane, like you say, comes into form, I hope he does, and then he takes that opportunity, or is he going to wait? I think he's got the experience. That's the key element that Uran's got. He's got the experience to have a go and let the others look at each other. Like today in that run in towards the finish, a lot of riders were looking at each other while others were being a bit more aggressive. And you are aggressive like Uran in the third week, then you could pay dividends.
Dan, why do you think that is then? Why are we not seeing the same early race dominance that we used to see with Team Sky? Is it because Chris Froome isn't here and they're losing one of the best Grand Tour riders of recent years? Is it the fact that Christian Prudhomme has tried to shake up the racing slightly? Has that succeeded?
I think it might be a couple of factors. I think first, they probably weren't 100% sure exactly how Geraint was going to perform on that very first mountain this year, given the lack of racing that he had before. Yes, they've got all the numbers from training, but it can always be a bit different when you get to a race itself. But there's also the fact that the final week is just so hard. I think in previous years, when Chris started winning the Tour, he went really flat out on the first mountain stage, and as you said, defended from that point onwards. The way that the race is this year, with that trio of mountain stages running up to the last day in Paris, they're so brutally hard that if you go flat out and you've got top form in the first week, you could well pay for it in that last one.
I believe that there's a couple of riders have had a wee bit of illness. Talking about that in a team, you had Michael Woods crash yesterday on that descent, which involved the Ineos team. TJ had a nasty accident. I looked pretty nasty. Have you had any other problems in the first 9 days?
No, I mean, we've been healthy, which you got to be thankful of that. So healthy, no injuries, no sicknesses. So I mean, that's a good sign.
I was asking you.
Oh, have I?
Personally?
No, personally, yeah, no, personally, the form is good. Look at that.
Was the Woods crash a tactic when you saw that Ineos were completely on his wheel?
Controversial. You can tell the truth. We're amongst friends here. We won't tell anyone.
That's what we always. Yeah, that's.
Silence.
Well, no, it was not.
You've not denied it yet.
Exactly.
No.
That's what I was waiting for. There you have it. Sabotage from EF Education First.
Well, I mean, that's when I saw Geraint complaining a little bit about Mike Woods crashing in front of him, and I said to Geraint, if you want to win the Tour de France, maybe don't follow the guy that actually is a runner and was a runner first, not a cyclist down the hill.
Absolutely, on his debut Tour de France.
Yeah.
How do you see the top 10 shaping up at the minute then, Jonathan? You've mentioned Pinot. I mean, given what you've said about his team, is he the man to beat? Is it Geraint Thomas? How do you see it shaping up?
Well, I mean, with the Team Sky thing, which is kind of interesting, I feel like even though in theory Chris Froome, taking him out, well, okay, they still have Bernal, they still have Thomas, they still come in, but it sort of shifts the whole team one slot to the left or one slot to the right, meaning that now Kwiatkowski is riding tempo a lot earlier than he would have in past years. And so, because in past years you sort of would have had Kwiatkowski go through that layer, then Bernal, then Geraint, then Froome, or whatever. You can mix that up a little bit. But now, Kwiatkowski is having to do the work much earlier than he has in past years, which that changes it around a lot. So I agree with Brian. The top 10, I think, is going to be really shaped by some opportunistic movement in the race in the final week, when people are really tired, when teams are kind of falling apart, that there will be some breakaways, some big moves that won't be able to be chased down, and how that'll impact the top 10 exactly, I don't know, but I think there'll be some bigger shifts than we've seen historically.
Your performance outside of your team, the performance of the Tour so far for you in a stage. You have to look at Thomas de Gendt yesterday, and you have to look at Alaphilippe and Epernay. What is your defining stage win of this year's tour or performance?
Well, I think the end yesterday. I mean, that was a truly special. I mean, Alaphilippe, it's when he attacks, it's so incredible, the explosiveness. I mean, he just flies away. But the Ghent yesterday was just a real hard man's victory.
Who were you working for yesterday? Was it for Woods or Bettiol?
Yeah, it was a split tactic, and that what the idea is to bring it to the base of the climb. That's what we were doing, and we'd close the gap right down, and had Woods not crashed, it probably would have been only 30 seconds or something by the base of the climb. And then Woods to do what Alaphilippe did, or at least to go with Alaphilippe, right? And then contest the win from there. And if that was brought back, Bettiol in the group. But obviously Woods fell down, Bettiol got shot out the back with Nibali, and so then,
This race has been talked about, and we often do this, and it doesn't really turn out that way, but it's been talked about as one of the most wide open in recent years. Has it been as exciting inside the race as it has been for us watching on the outside?
Well, luckily it hasn't. I mean, for our team, we've had a little bit of bad luck. But overall, the tour has actually been, when you say exciting, I think of past Tour de France's when you have 80 rider pileups and people screaming in ditches and, broken collarbones all over the place. Like
exciting's relative, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's when you're behind the scenes in a race, that's really exciting, because then you have all kinds of, hardship to deal with.
Panic, isn't it?
Yeah, panic. Yeah, exactly. This year, to me, the tour has actually been really beautiful, really calm, like great racing, but safe racing. I mean, so far, I think it's really been a great tour.
It's been a wonderful delight to watch. Well, Jonathan, best of luck heading into the rest day. Another day of racing ahead for you, and best of luck for the 3 weeks ahead. Hope you'll come back and join us. Have you enjoyed your debut Breakaway?
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we do have an extra day of racing this year before we hit the first rest day of the tour. We will have earned it by then. Stage 10 is 4 categorised climbs on the 217.5 kilometre route from Saint-Flour to Albi. Could be a day for the Breakaway or the green jersey hopefuls. Well, before that, you can catch the highlights of today's stage at 8 p.m. That is on Eurosport 2 tonight, so note the change of channel. And tomorrow, we will be back on our usual home spot of Eurosport 1, live from 11:15 with stage 10. And you will have a new Bradley Wiggins podcast to keep you company on the commute tomorrow morning as well. So head on to your podcast platform this evening and subscribe to that so you don't miss it. Well, there will be a bottle of bubbles popped at the Mitchelton Scott Team Hotel tonight in honour of the stage win by Daryl Impey, enjoying their own Bastille Day party. No storming of the yellow jersey on stage 9. The reign of Julien Alaphilippe looking solid for now. He has one more day of battles to survive to bring that into the rest day. Join us for stage 10 tomorrow.